Hello everyone, welcome back to the stream. Good to see you all. Good to see you. Alright, so we're continuing with controller support. I'm hoping that I'll be done with controller support within the next couple days here. And by done, I mean the game is perfectly playable with it. I might need to do some quality of life stuff. For example, I have to figure out how to display the buttons on the screen for hints, press these buttons, but whatever. It's you know, we can leave all the easy stuff for the end, right? Surely I won't regret that. But yeah, right now the Alchemortis playtest is live, so if you want to try out the game, definitely check it out. We've also got a new trailer up on the Steam page if you want to see that. Of course, you can wishlist. It's right below the playtest button here. And yeah, it has Alchemortis has a publisher now. The publisher is Feardemic. You could check them out from the publisher section here, the publisher link on Steam. But yeah, I think Alchemortis is going to be a much better success, much bigger success than it otherwise would be with this publisher. So yeah, I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy to share that news with you. But you can still support the development of the game by subscribing at Patreon. This support is still very much appreciated. So if you could, if you want, you could check it out if you want to support the game extra. You do get some nice perks for subscribing at the $15 a month tier. If you subscribe for at least 1 month, you get an Alchemortis Steam key at launch for the full game, and you will get your name in the in-game Alchemortis credits. And you also get access to my Udemy courses, all that good stuff. So check it out. That's a great way to support. You can also support by purchasing one of my Udemy courses. If you want to learn how to use the Godot engine, these are a great starting point, especially if you already have programming experience and you just want to get into Godot specifically. So check those out. But you can also support by, of course, trying the playtest. It's totally free. So try the playtest out. Give me your feedback. You can also wishlist the game, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. All that good stuff. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, Clickertail, welcome. Overload, welcome. Good to see you. Jhar, good morning to you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Goshin Game Dev, hello, welcome. Yeah, the publisher announcement from yesterday. Hello, Abo. The music is pretty sick. It's just the royalty-free music, yeah. Hello, the Malicious Rabbit. Welcome back. Good to see you again. Now I'm about to finish the main gameplay of the game, and I need art. Oh, yeah. Art is hard. Hello, Emerson. Welcome. Okay, so yesterday, I don't know how many of you were here for yesterday, but basically, I was working on controller displacement stuff. And if you recall, we tried to create a 10 by 10 board with the displacement, and that ended up taking 8 milliseconds to do, to try to find a failing displacement. So if I do add item, repeat Leviathan 9, I can add 9 Leviathans to the board. And then, let's see. Oh, my controller's not plugged in. I'm a very smart guy. Okay, so I can try to move these things over. Oh, my mouse keeps triggering, that's why. Okay. Keep moving. Okay, so I can't move that tapeworm over. There's no room for it. And if we look here... So we're down to 1.1 milliseconds to try to find and fail to find a displacement on a large board. So in practice, this is 100 cells. The player is never going to have a 10 by 10 board in the game. It's just not possible. So this was the absolute, this is a cartoonishly bad case of a full board with nowhere to go. And it's only taking, this is still pretty slow, but it's only taking 1.1 milliseconds when we have a 16 millisecond frame budget, and there's nothing else happening in the game, on a frame by frame basis that I need to compete with. So these one-off operations taking upwards of a millisecond to work, it's it's acceptable in the sense that it's not going to make a noticeable difference in the user experience. It may not be acceptable in the sense of it's still way too slow. But I think I did a pretty good job of getting that down. So what I ended up doing is in my card mouse events manager, I have this exhaustively find displacement position for card. What I ended up doing is I actually ended up creating, oh, this is not necessary anymore. I actually ended up creating a brand new board inventory component, loading the board state. So this would be like the full board state. But since this board inventory component is standalone, I can block its signals and then I can just do all the operations against that virtual board is what I'm calling it. So I mark it as virtual. And this does a couple of things. One, it blocks signals from being emitted. So if anything happens to be listening to it, those signals are not actually fired. Then it sets this is virtual flag. And this is virtual flag does a couple of things. One, it prevents this cleanup code from running. So this cleanup code is basically such that if a board inventory component gets freed with items on the board, it destroys each item as well, because we don't want, we don't want things to hang around in memory when a board gets destroyed. But if it's virtual, it doesn't do that. So if it gets freed and it has stuff inside of its data structures, it just doesn't do anything with them. So I could set up a virtual board, do a bunch of operations against the virtual board, and then when I get into a good state, I can just read the state from the virtual board and apply it to the real board. So that's what I'm doing. What else? I think that's basically the main thing that I did. So now we're not getting all of the overhead of like all of those hundreds of signals being emitted, because the side effect of those signals being emitted when boards typically change is that the item positions will change and all that stuff. And it's like, ends up being quite heavy. And then the other thing that I did as well is in apply displacement, I'm skipping applying any of the animations if the board inventory component passed into this is virtual. So if it's a virtual board, obviously we have nothing to animate, so don't animate anything. There was one other thing that I did, and then I optimized the board inventory component a little bit. There was a bunch of like set allocations and set operations that were happening in a lot of the methods that I needed to determine the displacement. So let me see, try cell. So find nearest valid empty position and find nearest valid empty position for new card. This is now just a straight loop over an existing collection. So these are, let me just make sure this is true. Yeah. So these are zero allocation methods now, but I did have to change my board inventory component to explicitly track empty cells now, which was not something I was doing before, because what I did whenever I needed empty cells, I would just take all of the cells on the board and then take the exclusion or the exception set of valid grid cells and occupied cells, and that would leave me with all of the empty cells. But now I'm just maintaining an empty cells hash set that gets updated alongside the rest of the data whenever appropriate. And so now if I ever need to iterate over the empty cells, I don't need to do any allocations or set operations. I can just read it. So I don't know how much of a difference that in particular made, but it is a nice improvement. So anyway, I think it's acceptable now. I was worried that this performance was not going to be that good, but again, this is worst case scenario. If we go to a more reasonable, like upper end of the player board size, so override player board dimensions, we might end up more reasonably with like a 6x6 board. So that's 36 cells compared to 100, right? So this is a 6x6 board. If I also fill this, add item, let's just do something fun. Let's do add item, repeat, scarab, 38. Okay, so we've got 38 scarabs now. And if I try to move it over, oh, it's still taking, oh no. So we're at, I don't know if you can see that log down there, but so in like a normal case size player board, we're ending up with 0.2 milliseconds to do that, to try and fail that displacement operation. So that is a lot better. So I'm happy with that. I think we're good now. I don't really feel a need to go much deeper on that. I mean, yeah. The only way to get more performance out of this now would be to like do some really weird like high IQ like mathematical algorithms for like I forgot what it was called. There was like this particular algorithm that Claude pointed out, and it's like, oh, the time complexity of this is like O times n to the square root of n or whatever. I'm like, I'm out, man. Like, this is fine. And it's like, and the other thing too is that algorithm works best if you assume everything that you're working with is a 1-by-1, so like a unit tile. But I have items that are multiple tiles, and then AI is like, well, it becomes like exceedingly more complicated. Because I think the word it used was like a hypergraph problem. I'm like, this is beyond my. I'm not a mathematician. I tried to do a math minor in college, and I was like, nope. I just dropped that. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So yeah, we're not doing that. Finally back from vacation, so I can work on my game again. Awesome. But it was nice to take a week after putting so many hours in the jam version. Yeah, for sure. Impossible, you say? It's probably possible, actually. Hello, Wooius. Welcome back. Need a godly RNG run to do it. Yeah, it might be, like, theoretically possible, but it might be one of those things where it's, like, 1 in 5 million, you know? Upgrade your PC, yeah. Do you guys not have phones? Hello, we love math. Yes, we love math. So there's a couple of problems here. So I was thinking about my controller board moving stuff. So right now the trigger buttons are to move items left and like to the leftmost board and the rightmost board. But now I'm thinking maybe I should make the triggers. I should make those modifiers, right? So for like, if I wanted to do quick sell, I would hold the trigger and then press like A or something. So that instead of doing a normal grab operation, that would do a sell. And then I was thinking for the same, like I can keep the bumpers. I can keep the bumpers as like moving boards, but I can hold the modifier to like force it to the end, right? So if I held like right trigger and pressed left bumper, instead of going to that board, it would go all the way over to this one. I don't know. I don't play games on controller, so I don't know what feels natural, but I do think I'm going to need a modifier key because I don't want to, for example, I don't want to make quick sell like one of the normal face buttons because I feel like that's going to be very easy to accidentally press. So if it's a modifier key that you have to like left or right trigger plus A, that may do the quick sell. I don't know. This is one of the hard parts of controller support is just figuring out like what is a sensible way to do things. I think if you use Brittle Bones for his big starting board, then you get a cloak and use it to get every board growth node. If you get some board nodes from the obelisk, then you could get to 10 by 10. But then you probably just die to the mayor anyway. I was quoting Todd Howard. You could say that to your players. Yeah, I know. I knew it was a meme. The good news is that I've heard from people who are playing the game on older hardware, and it's fine. But I also, this is not in a playtest build, but I also dramatically improved the performance of all or most of the shaders. So that should help a lot too. Because I think that like the gameplay logic is like, it's not that heavy. It really isn't that heavy, so anyway. That's a tangent. Let's figure out what to do with all these freaking scarabs. All right, so one major thing that I need to do is I need to figure out like camera panning. I also need to re-enable like hide tooltips. I also wonder, so I'm thinking about the map here. This needs to be fixed. This is constantly reading input. So I'm thinking about the map. Does it make sense for the right stick to pan the map? The other thing that I'm thinking is maybe it makes sense for the camera to follow your cursor. I don't know. So I can see both working. Right stick to pan the camera, but maybe the camera just follows wherever your cursor goes if you're in controller mode. I think that makes sense, right? The other thing that I might want to do is I might want to prevent controls from being eligible for focus that are outside of the screen. Because I can just currently go like all the way up this way. Oh, maybe not. Oh, I can't because there's no, that's the end of the focus region. Yeah. Well, let's just try a bunch of things and see how it feels. You can have the camera always follow where you're navigating, then the camera can be panned with the right stick when you're not using left stick. Yeah, that can work. Hello, Eric Jacobson. Eric Jacobson. Alchemortis has a publisher. Tell me more about it. Yeah, the publisher is Spheredemic. I don't know. I'm still waiting to hear back on like what exactly I can say about our agreement, but basically, you know, you can think of all the things that publishers are typically, you know, responsible for. Things like localization, exploring ports to consoles, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think what's nice about having a publisher here is that I basically don't have to worry about, like, I have to build the localization system for the game, obviously, but I don't have to worry about actually getting the localizations done. I don't have to worry about doing the marketing as much. I don't have to worry about console porting. So I basically get to just spend the entirety of my time focused on building the game, and then they handle all the other stuff. You know, entering the game into events and all that stuff. You know, I'm sure that they're, so I don't know, maybe I should not reveal too much because I don't know exactly what I can say yet, but those are the roles that publishers typically fill, and those are the roles that my publisher is filling as well. So I do have complete creative control over the game. This is not a designed by committee situation, so it's not, if you're worried that Alchemortis is going to change because, you know, the publisher said do this and do that, that is not the case. So I'm basically, you know, I can do whatever I want with the game as it comes to like features and gameplay and all that stuff, content. Did the publisher make your playtest trailer? They did, yes. And my publisher was responsible for the capsule art, the Steam art as well. So yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I know I just started the stream, but I have to take a quick 2-minute break and then we're gonna figure out this map stuff. So be right back. All right, sorry about that. Sometimes things come up. Sometimes life does not respect the fact that I'm streaming. Goodness gracious, can you believe it? Can you believe that sometimes things don't go according to plan? Can you believe that? Anyway, we're gonna try to get the map panning working. Hello, Ninja Link, welcome, good morning to you. So I'm kind of scared to do this because my map stuff is a little bit weird. All right, so is it this one here? Map input layer. Okay, so this is a state machine. We've got state none, state keyboard pan, state mouse pan, state controlled, state disabled, state free cam, state none. So there's a state machine for my map camera panning. I'm probably going to need to add new states to this. So if I do, so basically the reason there's all these states is because I've got the locked camera, right? And the locked camera just stays on the player position. But then I've got the free cam, which is me just like moving this around. But then I have like this unlocked state, which is that the camera is not locked to anything. It's been free moved and it's just here, right? But then I have also like WASD camera movement that might be a different state as well. And then I think, do I have another state? Let me think. I think I have a state like disabled, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so state disabled just locks the camera to the player's position. State controlled, right, so I have a controlled state as well. Actually, does this ever do anything? Do I need this anymore? Force lerp camera to position. Oh, right, yeah. State machine not update. Right, so this force, so I have another controlled state. So like when the obelisk causes node changes or event changes, encounter changes, it enters this controlled state, which basically just means that it's being controlled externally and no player input can affect the state. So I have a state keyboard pan, I have a state mouse pan. I probably will want, oh, this is gonna be nutty. I'm probably going to want a state machine for state controller pan. Node clickable coordinator, disable mouse input. I probably don't need to do that. But let's just do private void state controller pan. This is going to be very similar to... if is action pressed, action center camera. So this is the problem. So one of the problems with my state machine implementation, this delegate state machine, is that it doesn't have a way of defining like, so every state can go to every other state, right? And that's fine, that's a normal state machine. But if you really want like a sophisticated state machine, what you would do is you would define the states that are explicitly connected to that state. Such that, like, let's say that I wanted to go from the none state to the controller pan state, there may be like an intermediate state there that I would have to travel through. So you would actually travel through all the valid states that are like a tree traversal or a graph traversal to get to the state, the final state that you want to be in. But that final state may have a prerequisite of like needing to go through 2 or 3 intermediary states to get there. My state machine doesn't have that. My state machine is basically just like, here's all your states, and there's no restrictions on which states can be entered from other states. And so that's why I have to end up doing like this weird stuff in my input handling where like I have to check that I'm not in a current state. This would be a lot easier to do if I actually set up an explicit like state graph. And then what I could do is I could say, well, this none state, this recenter camera, can only be entered if I'm in these 3 states, right? So I would connect these 3 states to that state enter camera, or recenter camera rather. And then that just works, right? Because then if I try to enter the recenter camera state and I'm not in one of these states, it would just like either silently fail or it would traverse through all the states that would be prerequisites to ending up at that state. But like I said, I don't know why I went through that massive explanation just to say that I don't support that. Maybe it's educational, maybe you guys learned something, but if not, then I hope you enjoyed the time I just burned. Where do you get the lo-fi music for the stream? It's called the Relaxed Movement on YouTube. Relaxed Movement. It's just royalty-free lo-fi music. The only thing you have to do is like credit the channel in the description, but it's like totally copyright-free. So I had a problem. I have a bone to pick with Lo-Fi Girl. So everyone knows Lo-Fi Girl, right? It used to be the case that the Lo-Fi Girl license was such that you could put the Lo-Fi Girl music on in your in the background of your stream, and that was a valid use of the license, right? And so sometimes my VODs would get like copyright claimed, and I would just link to the Lo-Fi Girl license, and then the claim would be released, right? Because it's like, okay, I was in compliance with that license, but the license got removed, so you can no longer do that with Lo-Fi Girl's music. And now like I'm getting like 3 emails a day of like all of my really old VODs, which are like, oh, revenue disabled because copyright, because you were like, the license no longer applies, and I can't dispute it anymore because that license text no longer exists on the Lo-Fi Girl website. So I was like, okay, thanks for the rug pull, I guess, but now I'm just using the royalty-free stuff, and it's not as good, but it's some nice background music, and I don't have to worry about copyright claims anymore. So anyway, boycott Lo-Fi Girl. They mildly inconvenienced me. How is that even a state machine if it doesn't define any transitions? Isn't it part of the definition? No. No, state machine... Like, what would be the difference between a state machine that defines transitions to every other state versus a state machine that doesn't have defined transitions, right? They're functionally equivalent, right? So I could either connect all the states to every other state, or I could just assume that every state is connected to every other state. It's still a state machine. I mean, an if-else block is a state machine. Like, this is a little mini state machine, right? My state machine does support like enter and leave callbacks though. So I know like when a state is being entered for the first time, and I know when it's being left for the first time. Not the first time, I just mean that this only calls once. So enter gets called once upon enter, and this gets called once upon leaving. And there's a couple of other things about my state machine too, which is that it does the state change during idle time. So it defers the state change until after all of the current state logic has finished, which is nice. But yeah, it's a state machine for sure. You don't have to have transitions. What are your opinions on virtual cursors for a controller? Like, instead of locking the player to navigating nodes, you can use the left or right stick like a free mouse and navigate like a regular mouse. No virtual cursors, no. I will not be doing virtual cursors. It's definitely part of the formal definition of a finite state machine. I mean, I'm not necessarily arguing with that. I'm saying that having all of your states connected to all of your other states implicitly is no different than explicitly defining them. right? Whether states are like state transitions are implicit or explicit, the state transitions still exist, right? I have a finite number of states. It's just that the way that I've built my state machine is that all states are implicitly traversable from every other state. It's there just because your implementation doesn't like have a like edge data structure connecting the states doesn't mean that it's not still formally a finite state machine. Okay, so state controller pan. I need to enter this state. What is FreeCam? Unfortunately, I'm still in school, so I don't have a stable income, so I can't release it on Steam. Plus, I'm saving for a new GPU instead of the one that blew up, so I'm going to be releasing the game on itch. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I think that's a good way to go. I don't really know what to do here. State free cam. I change into the state free cam. Get keyboard pan vec. Okay. If math f is equal to prox length squared to 0, state free cam. So free cam is basically the unlocked state. So this is mouse pan mode, and then this is free cam mode. So what I want to do then is I want to be able to change to that controller pan state from the free cam state, I think. Get keyboard pan vec. Let's do this. Private vector 2. Get controller pan vec. Okay, if input device manager dot is controller active or not is controller active, we're going to return vector 2.0. And I have to set up the input map for the right stick, I believe. Actually, I can probably just do pan left, pan right, pan up, pan down. Yeah, so let's do pan left. Right stick left, pan right, right stick right. Pan up, right stick up. Pan down. Right stick down. Okay. Actually, now I'm thinking this keyboard pan just gets the pan vector. I'm wondering if I should Should I actually split it into like specific controller pan options? Maybe not. So I may not actually need... I may not actually need this. What I'm worried about is like, let's say that somebody has a controller with very bad stick drift and they have it plugged in to their computer. Is that going to constantly be moving the map for them? But then I was thinking about it and I'm like, well, it's going to continually detect that a controller is connected either way. Like if you have a faulty controller plugged into the game, it's just going to keep stealing input from the mouse. So it's going to be like, if I try to do the game like this, like it's just going to keep stealing from the mouse anyway, if there's like some stick drift there. So it's really not actually a concern. So I can pan this now. Seems to work pretty well. The camera recenters. So actually that's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So I actually don't need a specific controller pan state. But what I will do is I will just rename this to, instead of state keyboard pan, actually, do I need a state mouse pan as well? Yeah, the mouse pan works differently, so that's probably fine. So this could actually just become state pan. So this is just this, and then we get pan vector. Okay, so that solves that problem. Now getting the mouse to pan to whatever control I focus is going to be maybe a little bit tricky. So if I want the camera to like slightly move to what I've selected here, that's going to be a problem. Also, I can't select that enchant. Oh, that's annoying. I probably want to do, hold on a second. I find a direction perpendicular penalty provider. Let's see if that fixes it. And I'm actually going to take the same seed so I can see if that fixes that specific issue. Could start a fundraiser for getting it on Steam if you think people will like it. Yeah. My hair type is very similar to yours. Yeah, I even have a similar hairstyle, but I'm still growing up the back. Nice. Yeah, my hairstyle is very specific. It's just let it grow. But I get what you mean. I get what you mean. You can make some money by releasing early version on itch, even by releasing it for free. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think people like Chris Zukowski also recommend, like, if you're unsure about how a game is going to do on Steam, like, throwing up a demo on itch is actually a great first step. Because if it blows up on itch, then that's basically a guarantee almost that it's going to do pretty well on Steam. I'm gonna have to think about this some more. Because what I think should happen is, yeah, this is actually a little bit tricky because it's hard for me. Like, I can't select this item. Now, what I would expect is that if I hit up, I would go to this one. And if I hit left, I would probably want to go to that one and then that one. I might need to come up with some specific focus handling for that, but that's all right. All right, do we want to try to make the camera focus on on the hovered map tool, or the hovered map node. So let's just try this. If I do on GUI focus changed. If focus control is map node, let's do is not. Okay, so now I want to change the state here, but only if it's a valid state. Okay. Let's just do this. If current state is not equal to state disable, okay, so camera target position is equal to focus control dot global position plus focus control dot size divided by 2. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, I also need to change the state. State machine dot change state free cam, I think. So I'm basically just going to hook into the free cam state. Well, that's kind of cool. I don't know. That's a little bit nauseating, though. I think I would need a more... Oh, yeah, that's not very good. If I were going to do this, I would need a smaller smoothing value. Like, it would need to be more gentle if I was going to do this. Is there an easy way to do that? I think what I'd probably do is I would say private float current smoothing, current camera smoothing is equal to pan smoothing. what I may do is I may just do current smoothing is equal to pan smoothing, and then in here, so when I leave the free cam state, we reset it. And then in here, what I can do is I can say current smoothing is equal to 1. So that will set the smoothing for as long as I'm in that free cam state. But as soon as I leave the free cam state, it gets reset back to the default. Now, is that gonna break if I do it? Oh yeah, that's probably not gonna work. Because when I call, let's see. I'm gonna just mess this all up, but that's okay. Oh wait, no. Hold on a second. I'm thinking about this wrong. Actually, I think there's two problems going on here. I think it's gonna transition to state free cam from state free cam, so I don't disallow same state changes. I don't think. Yeah. So when I enter the state free cam, the previous state free cam is going to be left here and reset the camera smoothing. But the other problem is that you know what? I'm just going to change this. I'll just call it free cam smoothing. I don't think that this is going to work. I think I need to also do this. Okay. Let's see what that does. Are you going to join the GMTK jam this year? I don't know. We'll see. I may not have time to do it. We already had 3 people pay for our jam version and it's up for free, but we're re-releasing the post-jam version in a month or so on itch with some professional capsule art. Very nice. Now that smoothing feels a little bit too slow. You're going to try to make a 3D game in the future? Maybe. We'll see. If it does well like we expect it to, we'll be working on the Steam version that will hopefully release this year or early next year. Very nice. Maybe you can make a stream where you're trying 3D and Godot after you finish Alchemortis. Maybe we can help you. I don't know if I want to do 3D yet. I mean, maybe. How do we feel about this? Is this camera smoothing good or no? Hello, Two Socks X. Welcome. Good to see you. I am disappearing for a second. I mean, do we like that camera smoothing or no? To me, it still feels a little nauseating. Maybe it's not a good idea to do this. Maybe it's not a good idea to do this. Good morning, Light Tiramisu. Good to see you again. I'm working on making an introductory tutorial for Godot Rust. What are some things someone like you who's experienced Godot would like to learn how to do? Oh, that's a very good question. I'm trying to think of like, what is the most complex thing that I do for all of my games? Like, so like, what is the thing I always do that is the most complex? Because obviously each game is going to have its own complexities, but like, what am I always doing? One of the things that I always do typically is I use custom resources. And so I would like to see in Rust, what does it look like to, number one, define a custom resource for Godot in Rust? And then how would I actually like pass that thing around the system to be read? And that includes like, you know, I have my registry pattern that I use. Oh, that's not good. I have my registry pattern that I use, which loads the resources from the file system. So I think like knowing like how to approach in Rust, defining a custom resource, loading it from the file system at runtime, and then propagating that throughout the entire system so I can get like, so I can do things with it. That's something that I do very regularly that I could see being a little bit not super clear for me if I was first starting Rust in terms of how to do that. I think like all the nodes stuff, I think that should be fine, like overriding process and whatnot. I think I could figure that out pretty easily. I love the visuals. Thank you, 2SocksX. Appreciate it. By the way, 2Socks, the public playtest is available now. So you can try the game if you want to. Join the Discord, leave me your feedback. That would be appreciated. Split the difference at 1.5F. Yeah, I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's the smoothing value that I have a problem with necessarily. I think it's just the smoothing generally. Like, I think one of the main problems that I'm having with this is that like I go here and the tooltip is moving on the screen. There's a little bit of like jitteriness because of the rounded nature of the pixel coordinates, right? Like this, the pixel snapping on the low resolution. So there's a little bit of jittering. The tooltip is moving around. And it just feels, I don't know, it just feels so different than the normal experience of the game, which is like I have control over all the motion of the screen. And as soon as I hover over something, it's like everything's static, right? But now I'm in a situation where when I hover over something, like the whole environment is moving, and that just feels very... like this actually just feels unpleasant to me. Not necessarily just like the smoothing, it's the fact that there's text on the screen that is not static, that is changing position. It feels kind of, yeah, it just feels kind of bad. I don't know. I don't need that log anymore. Godot Rust documentation kind of lacks stuff on editor on ready. Setters and getter stuff can be a bit hard to get right. Much appreciated. Thanks. You're welcome. GD extension feels very close to C# support in many ways. The main change is how inheritance is handled, but makes sense how it's done. I mean, maybe I just get rid of the camera panning. Maybe this is not a good thing to do. I'm glad I didn't go overboard in like architecting that very well, because like after testing it, I actually don't think I like that. But you know, like there's the thing, well, you know, you can make it an option in the settings, but it's like, I don't know about, I just don't want to have like a bunch of permutations of different settings. I just want the default experience to be good. This feels fine to me. So you can pan the camera with the right stick, and then you can just hop around to your heart's content. I think if I do this, though, what I'd need to do is prevent controls that are outside of the viewport or outside of the viewable area from being focusable candidates. How hard would that be? Okay, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. I'm not going to do the camera pan on selection. I don't want to do that. I think something like what Ninja Link suggested, though, like maybe... Maybe if we just shift the camera down, not down, up. Shift the camera up a little bit so the player's at the bottom of the screen. Why did that not work? Okay. Hello, Yito. Welcome back. It would be nice to be able to see how the different damage types work in the game. Oh, that's too much. What do you mean? So there's like, there's explanations. So if I go into the game, and maybe this is, I mean, I think like to the extent that people are bringing up these problems, it's probably a lot of it is because I'm just not doing a good job of showing the player what's available to them. But all the damage types are explained here on the items that have the damage. So this one is poison. So it explains how poison works down here. Now, I think that's not clear because the only way you know that you can inspect items is like there's a little inspect mouse icon down there. And even if you do that, you may not know that you can like scroll here to read everything. So that is a problem. And then the other problem too is I think it would just be a good idea to have like an encyclopedia that you can bring up where you can just read everything in like a glossary kind of view. So it could definitely be better. Another thing to note is that you can't pair up scenes with scripts in the same way you do in GDScript and C#. It's a different workflow, but was not a showstopper for me. Does the move with left stick also work the same as D-pad? Not yet, no. D-pad, the inputs are of the left stick are just continually red, so it just keeps jumping around. So I need to add code in place that like will just only accept like one event and stop repeating it or stop changing it. Because the problem is, right, the stick is like an analog input. And so even with tiny motions, the value is constantly changing. It's a float value from 0 to 1. Or I guess it's technically, is it from 0 to 1 or is it from, no, I think it's from -1 to 1, right? On each axis. So you've got your up-down axis, -1 to 1 is the range. And then you've got your left-right axis. -1 to 1 is the range. But even just like tiny changes in the analog stick report a new event because the axis values have changed. So I need to have code in place to like prevent tiny changes. Like you should have to like basically tap the stick in the direction that you want to go and then reset the stick and then tap it again, right? But I haven't added that yet. Anyway, that looks better. Maybe I'll just do this. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I honestly don't know how I'm going to do that because I think there has to be some kind of dead zone. Because if I just take the first value that I can take, that may not actually be the direction you want to go in. So I almost want to make it so that like when you push the analog stick like past 75% of its max range, that's when it accepts the event as your movement event, right? And then once you go below like 25% of the max range, that's the reset trigger. So because I don't want to make it too sensitive because then it'll be super janky to work with. But I also don't want to make it too sensitive in both senses, right? I don't want to make it too sensitive to detect things, detect the direction you want to go in. But I also don't want to make it too sensitive in terms of detecting when it resets, right? Or too precise, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Anyway, so we shifted the camera down a little bit, like Ninja Link suggested. I think that looks a lot nicer. You get a little bit of extra space. Then you can pan the camera. So now what I want to do is I want to see if I can prevent controls from being focused that are outside of the current view. How would I do that? Is there a way to check if a rect2 contains another rect2? Encloses. Returns true if this rectangle completely encloses the B rectangle. So viewport rect dot encloses. Okay. It's more about how that information is communicated. I think like you're not seeing what happens in real time. For example, the cooldowns are great because you can see the frame around the cards fill. Oh, gotcha. Hey Firebelly, I went on a bit of a hiatus from watching because work got really busy. It's finally simmered down again. Excited to try out the latest playtest later today. Awesome. Thank you, TK421. Welcome back. Good to see you again. That 128 was amazing to see. I wonder if it would be better as a setting that the player can customize. Yeah, that might be something I add to the settings, like camera offset. Let me add small things. I'll just add it to the backlog. Okay. All right, let's see if I can actually focus things that are outside. I can. Son of a biscuit. Okay, that didn't work at all. Hello, O Pacheco Studio. Welcome back. With some luck, I'll be able to get on in the playtest today. I'm basically playing a sequel at this point. Nice. All right, let's see. Why are these the same? Wait, why is that happening all the time? Oh. So I realize now that this is not what I wanted. I might have to construct my own rect here. I don't really want to be doing that every frame though, so I'm gonna have to figure out something for that, I suppose. All right, let's see if it works. It works. Okay, I can no longer... I can no longer focus map nodes that are partially outside of the viewport. Is that going to cause problems? So I need to figure out what to do. Because right now, that is being called every frame. Does that need to happen? I need to get rid of that freaking settings button. So if I do this, it's, for some reason, it's changing the focus. I wonder why that's happening. I mean, it's nice that it's automatically doing the focus change for me as I scroll up, but I don't know why that's happening. Anyway, that seems pretty good to me though. So now I'm in a situation where, you know, the map nodes that I can select are limited to what's fully visible on screen. And so that prevents my cursor from going like way up out of bounds, and I have to pan the camera to make a different selection. I think that makes sense. I just don't know why the focus is being automatically lost here and like refocused. Why is that happening? Is it related to the cursor? Huh. I don't know why that's working. That was unintended. That's the thing I don't like. I don't like when my code is working in a way that's okay, but I don't know why. Like I never explicitly, I don't think I ever explicitly supported that. How is that working? I don't understand that. Why is it changing focus? Because I'm not... I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. I have no idea why that's working that way. Because, like, I should only be trying to regrab focus. Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea why that's working. I've not touched async in there yet, but I've seen some async related things in the documentation. Saw GD text coroutines library. They await if it's possible to do in Rust. Does the stream's background music go in and out for anyone else or just me? I don't know. Some coding guy, hello. Found the blog for you on analog sticks input. Okay, I'll take a look. Thank you. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Sorry for the non sequitur, but have you thought about adding a CRT filter option? Yes, I did. I did that at one point. I didn't like how it looked, so I scrapped it. Being able to move the camera up and down by scrolling would be cool. Saw a refocus function while you're searching through the code. What does that do? Yeah, I mean, the refocus function does exactly what it says. It grabs focus on the next available focus. The problem is that this is not called every frame, so I don't know why the focus is changing when I'm panning the camera. I've got a Q refocus here. Yeah, but these Q refocuses only happen on very specific. Oh, maybe it's this. Yeah, it's this. I'm calling Focus Manager refocus if no focus anytime I receive any controller input. And what this will do is this will say, if we already have a focus owner, return. See, that's the thing that I'm confused by. Like, I have a focus owner. This enchant node is my focus owner. I don't have any code that should be explicitly like rechecking that focus state as it exits this tree. So that's the thing that's confusing me, is like, I don't understand how it's going from focused to refocused, or going from focused to unfocused to refocus. Like, I don't know what's releasing the focus on that enchant when it goes off the screen. Like, I obviously just added code to make controls that are off the screen not focusable. But the point is, like, I don't have anything that triggers the defocus, right? Or at least I don't know why that would be happening. Because the focus owner will still be there. So this will never be called because I have a focus owner. So yeah, I don't know. Does focus owner not check focusable? No, this focus owner is Godot's thing. Like, it just gives you the currently focused control. This doesn't include all my custom logic. The only way that this would ever return null is if the focusable object like changed to focus mode none, or obviously if if you cleared the focus somehow. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not going to figure this out now. I just don't know what's triggering the loss of focus when I scroll the element outside of the screen, because I didn't explicitly add that. So something's weird here. Although, like, I could change this to, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, it seems to be working all right. I just don't know. I mean, it's behaving the way that I would want it to. I just don't know why it's behaving that way, because I never told it the code to do that. I never told the computer to do that. Has the AI infested my machine? Anyway, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and when I come back, we'll continue on. We're still going to do controller stuff. So anyway, yeah, just 3 minutes. Enjoy the new Alchemortis trailer while I'm gone, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. All right, so it's clear that I need to do a little bit work on my focus system. Turns out it's really hard to build a generalized focus system that just works, but that's okay. Let's see. I want to see if this is still a bug. It's not. Okay, so this is actually fixed. That's done. Okay, so I want to do modifier keys for controller. Okay, let's take a look at this blog really quick. I'm kind of curious to see. Do I dare click this? Medium.com, it looks safe. Okay, let's see. I don't care how analog stick works. Okay, this is all... Okay. Well, I'm sorry to say that that's all basic stuff that I already know. But thank you for sharing. I was hoping that would be like here's how to very nicely get your whatever, your dead zones dialed in for selecting items in a direction, but that was just mostly about like just the vector math that's involved with it. So let's see. I can get rid of that now. So I'm using the built-in actions, joypad, D-pad right, joypad axis. Yeah, so UI right, okay. I don't know why there's these areas here that are clickable. I can edit the dead zone here. Maybe the dead zone is already okay. Maybe I just need to prevent that from repeating. I don't need this. Let me clean this up really quick. I don't need the state controller pan either. Okay, I just need to clean this stuff up. Oh my gosh, if I could type. Alrighty. Let's see, action UI up. Find focus and direction. So I wonder if it's as simple as doing, let me try this. Let's call it is focus direction handled. I'm going to need to change this too. What? Is focus direction handled? I'm going to change this to... I'm going to need to change all this stuff, I think. We use input get axis. Input get vector, that's what I want. Negative x would be game constants dot UI action UI left. Game constants dot action UI right. Game constants dot action UI up. So I'm going to want this vector here. Direction is equal to this. If the focus direction has not been handled, we're going to do this. I could combine those into one if statement, but I'm not going to do that right now. We're going to copy this. I don't think that's going to work. I might need to do polling, honestly. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do polling, but... So this is a little bit of a mess, but... I suppose I could move this up here. It's a little bit of a mess, but I'll clean it up as soon as I get it to work. So essentially what I'm trying to do is, if we haven't yet handled a focus direction, we're going to see what's currently pressed, if any of these actions are pressed. Then we're going to grab the vector for that direction, and that's going to be our direction. Now this will need to be normalized. Or does this return a normalized vector? Yeah, this returns a normalized vector, so that's already correct. So then we pass that into grab, focus, and direction. And then what I do is I listen for any of those actions being released if the focus was handled, and then I set it back to false. So my goal is to make that not, not keep repeating the analog stick events with the minor changes. So once we read an analog stick event, we basically block any future reads, any changes to that until one of these is released. Or until we lose controller active. So anytime the controller becomes inactive, we set that to false as well. So now, the thing that I don't think is going to work, like, I'm not sure, like if you press the stick perfectly up, it may determine that the left and right actions are released, but I don't know if that actually is the case. I don't know exactly how Godot's input works with respect to analog sticks, but it may be the case that anytime you're out of the dead zone for an analog stick, like all of these direction actions are fired. They might just be fired with a value of 0 or close to 0. I don't think it would ever be exactly 0 because of the analog stick, but I mean, we'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'll figure out what's wrong and then we'll fix it. Okay, it's definitely not working. So it may be the case that when I stop moving the analog stick, it fires that action released. So I really, actually what I need to listen for is the analog stick re-entering the dead zone. I think. Yeah, that's not working at all. The normal D-pad movement still works. How do I get Godot's input system to play nicely? Let's take a look at the input class and see if there's anything helpful here. I may just have to listen. I may just have to poll here. Oh, I gotta do vibrations on the controller too, right. I gotta do vibrations. Let's take a look at an input event. Get action strength. Just joined. What are you working on with the controller input at the moment? Trying to get the left analog stick to work as a direction focus direction grabber. What am I building? I'm building Alchemortis, my roguelite auto battler game, which you can check out. The Steam link is below. Why nullable vector 2 if you have direction not equal to null? That allows me to check if the vector was set. So the problem is vectors are structs, so they can't be null by default. And the default value of a vector 2 is 0, 0. But if I want to detect if I've received any input, I mean, maybe I could compare to 0. But basically, this is basically saying down here, if I have a direction defined, that means that I handled some input in here. And if I don't have a direction defined, then I can skip this code. So this grab, focus, and direction. So this is just a more explicit way of saying basically, did any of the following operations actually assign an explicit direction that I want to handle? If this remains null, then that means that nothing happened to this. Do you feel like streaming and making videos about game development have any impact on game sales? I don't feel like devs play each other's games. Yeah, I mean, I think, the number of playtesters that I have and the number of people I have in the Discord is largely due to me doing my videos and streaming. Make it work first, optimize later, yeah. I would look at this. If there's a link, your links get stripped in the chat, so. Yeah, I mean, all these things are planned. I need to get it working first. I really don't want to do polling if I don't have to. What happens if I do? I realize I'm not handling this. I mean, I don't think that's going to make a difference, but... I really don't want to do polling. I don't want to have to poll every frame for the analog stick input. But I might have to. Why is there no way to see if, like, an analog stick re-entered the dead zone? Okay, let's just try a print here. I'm curious to see what this does. I probably don't need this. Well, whatever, we'll leave it. Yeah, so it sends an action. This is what I suspected was happening. It sends a release action when I stop moving the analog stick, which I guess makes sense, right? So it's reporting an event when the analog stick changes value, and then when it, I mean, maybe it just immediately... It might be one of the situations where it emits the event pressed and then released immediately after for like analog stick input. But for D-pad, it fires a release when I release it. So yeah. What I could do... Let me just try this. This is a little bit messy, but... If... So I don't actually need to poll. I just need to check if the vector is equal to 0. How am I doing this? Map input layer. Right. If mathf dot is 0 approx here. Let's see if that works. Probably going to have to be polling if you're using an analog stick because they report continuous float and there's no built-in cross threshold event built in. Hey, look at that. It seems to be working. Uh-oh. Oh, wait, I can't. Okay, so I can't focus that one because it's off screen. Oh, that feels much nicer. I still could improve the card targeting. I may need to do that. Yeah, I may need to do that. So each item in the inventory has like a focus point. And the focus point is what's used in the focus direction to determine which one to focus next. So the focus point for the Banshee head is here. And the focus point for the tapeworm is here. So when I press the up key, it's doing a directional vector, you know, this way. And then it's going directional vector to the gnome. Now, because the gnome is the straighter path, it favors that one. But I think what I would expect to see is that since the tapeworm sits between the gnome and the Banshee head, I would expect that to be the next selection. And same here, right? If I press up, it should go to the tapeworm and not to the Banshee head. So what I may need to do, it gets tricky with items that are like various sizes, but what I might need to do is I might need to actually define an array of focus points. And the focus, like the potential focus points, would be at the center of each cell. I almost have to do a comparison against each cell. That could balloon, though. That could be a lot of operations. Because when I do find best focus and direction... Oops. Why am I not able to do this? Focus manager. Find best focus and direction. This iterates over all of the active focus candidates on the screen, and then it does like this scoring to determine which one should be grabbed. So I could potentially be checking, you know, 100 different cells, which maybe isn't that big of a deal, actually. But that's what I might have to do. The card rendering server does define its own find in direction perpendicular penalty provider, which returns 1. I actually wonder what would happen if I just bumped that up a little bit. Anyway, I'm probably going to need to make that a little bit nicer for those specifically, because the way that they can be interwoven in each other. Yeah, didn't do anything. Okay. Hello, K-Cog. Welcome. What is your tip for a game dev? Game dev is really hard, and you should expect it to be hard. And when you encounter problems, you just have to work through them. That's it. And that's problems anywhere. Like, it could be technical problems, it could be game design problems. It's like, ultimately, game dev is just a whole bag of problems that you have to solve. And everything is fundamentally solvable for the most part. So if your game design isn't working, it's a problem that needs to be solved. If your code isn't working, it's a problem that needs to be solved. And I think a lot of game devs, they get unmotivated or they get discouraged when they encounter a bunch of problems. But like that's just the nature of game development. I mean, like the entire development of this game is just a one big long stretch of solving problem after problem after problem. Like just from the playtest, I have 45. These are 45 brand new bugs that were brought up as part of the playtest. And so yeah, there's it's just hard. It's just hard. Would it work to add a cooldown and only allow one movement until the stick returns to neutral? Yeah, I mean, I think I could add a cooldown now. I think I could do that. So it'd basically just be a matter of like, basically just setting a timer. And then resetting that flag. But this feels really good now. And then the D-pad direction still works, but generally speaking, like I'm targeting every single thing that I'm trying to target here. Like I literally haven't made a mistake. Like everything that I've been intending to select was selected. And this is with the analog stick. So I don't know. Of course it's gonna crop it out. Now I do have to bring the analog stick back to the dead zone, but it's working. Remember seeing that controller support is one of the focuses for 4.7? Maybe the next version will be easier. You know, the thing I'm looking forward to most in 4.7 is the ability to change how controls are drawn and scaled independent of like their actual bounding box. That solves so many problems that I've had with Godot throughout the years. Could you check if the cell directly up, down, left, right of your cursor for a card and then get the focus point for that card? Slowly expand the focus area after each failure check. That would work. So the only problem is that now my focus system is going to require knowledge of what's being focused. So I would need to have knowledge about the board, right? Like if I want to do something like that, then all of a sudden now I've got to bring in the board functionality and like query which card is at the cell and so on and so forth. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make my focus system very generic. I'm trying to make my focus system basically not have any knowledge about the game that it's being implemented in, because I do want to be able to port this focus system over to a future game. So I'm trying to make it so that it doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge about the specific game that it's inside of, that it's working inside of. So if I were to do that, I would probably have to provide like a generic interface like I'm doing here that could, just when the interface is provided, change how the next focus works. But yeah, that would be a much easier way to approach it, because then I can just say if I press up, just search the cell that's up, and then find whatever item is in that cell. But the problem though is that like my cursor doesn't go cell by cell. So if I'm like in the center of the syringe here and I go up, yeah, there's just a couple weird things, like the controller cursor doesn't snap to cells. And so like that cell search would really only work in like this case where like I'm going straight up and I can find the item at the cell. But when I'm going here, if I press right from here, it selects the Banshee head. If I press up from there, it selects the gnome. I'm sure there's a way to make it work nicer. I just don't know if like a cell by cell search is going to work. Because again, that would require knowledge of like what's being focused in the focus manager. When what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to deal with generic controls. Like in the focus manager, the only thing the focus manager knows is like, here's all the controls that can receive focus. And then it applies that scoring algorithm to figure out like, what is the next control that I select that I should focus given a direction. So that's very generalized. And I want to keep it generalized for the reasons I mentioned. If I need to change how the generalized functionality works, then I need to create like a framework or an API for doing so. And that may work, but then there's just some weird things about how the focus system works. Play you by a test the full game. I don't know what you mean. Hyundai Kukin. I'm sorry, I don't know. There's a playtest available, which anyone can try if that's what you're asking. Solving problems and making decisions is a fundamental part of the creation process. Yes, it is, yeah. How much do you plan to spend on marketing? That is not up to me. That is up to my publisher. So for me personally, I'm planning on spending $0 of my own money on marketing. What the publisher's marketing budget is for Alchemortis, well, number one, I wouldn't be able to reveal that information anyway. And number two, it's like, that's basically within their purview. Okay. Anyway, I think we're getting there. I'm not super happy with this code here, but I'll fix it up later. $10 blood for marketing budget, yeah. All right. Anyway, I have a meeting to get to very shortly, so I'm going to hop off the stream for now. But again, the Alchemortis playtest is available for everyone to try. So head on over to the Steam page. You can click this request access button. You'll get right into the playtest. Give it a shot. Let me know what you think. You can join the Discord. That's linked below. The Discord is also linked on the Steam page. If you scroll down here, you can click on the Discord button and you'll get right in. But yeah, let me know what you think. You know, we're getting to the point in development where like everything's becoming solidified. And so like your feedback is still very important so I can make sure that it's really solid by the time it releases. But we'll probably be doing, you know, a handful of more play tests in the future. But probably, you know, this play test is going to run for a little bit. And then it'll probably be a couple months before the next play test because I do have a lot to work on. You know, like all these bugs, and then of course addressing the non-bug feedback for the playtest and whatnot. So, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the playtest. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. It's very much appreciated. I have like 10 hours already, and the game isn't even awesome. Yeah, I think I'm really like super grateful that number one, that you guys are all providing your feedback and bug reports, but also that a lot of you are spending several hours in the game. And that's, you know, like if you follow like Chris Zukowski or whatever, he's got like different tiers for how games will do based on like playtime for demos. And if you hit like just over an hour of playtime on your demo, that's like his diamond tier. That's like the tier that is going to create like the most success. And a lot of you are playing in the diamond tier range. So I'm very grateful for that. Very happy to hear that. And, you know, the game's not done. Like there's still a ton of room for improvement. So I'm just going to be like, all my effort is just going to be spent like making it as tight and as fun as possible. And so, yeah, I appreciate all of your support. It's very, yeah, I don't know. I'm just repeating myself now, but thank you all. What does it mean if I have 53 hours? Goodness gracious. It means that I did something right. It means that I did something right. I must be triple platinum diamond 3, yeah. You're like unobtainium. Heck yeah, more Godot, yes. Hello, Drufus. Sorry, I'm just hopping off, Drufus. Anyway, thanks again, everyone. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be back at it tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Also, I'll be releasing a new video on the channel very soon, so stay tuned for that. Okay, bye-bye, everyone, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.